Alright, so we've briefly touched on the coordinate system here. For example, here with the draw text function, we talked about how this is the x coordinate and this is the y coordinate, and this starts from the top left. So I'm going to pull up a picture from the Simblee for Mobile guide, the reference sheet, which I highly recommend you download. Down here on page 3, you can see that this is the 0, 0 point, and the x is coming over and the y is moving down. Even notes right here that for the iPhone 5 screen, which is what we're using in this tutorial, it is 320 units, I've been saying pixels, wide, and 570 units tall. You can find these, or you don't have to know what your phone's height and width are. Just, you know, you can't call up Samsung or something. I mean, maybe you could find it online easy, but in my opinion, the easier way to go about it would be to use a nice built-in function, which is screen width and screen height. So these are built in, and what we can do is if we want to know them, if we want to, you know, be told what they are, we could do something where we could start a serial connection. Serial begin. Begin. And in the loop, we can do serial dot print line Simblee for Mobile screen width, and we could preface it with width equals, and then we could do the same thing for height. And then we'll definitely want to put a delay in there so the values aren't screaming past. That'll still be pretty quick, but we'll be able to read them at that rate. Alright. Oh, it's going to not like those there. So this is just so that we can now figure out what the values for whichever device we are using. And the neat thing about this is that no matter what device that you connect to your Simblee, you know, no matter what the height and width of that device are, it's going to be able to tell you that. And looks like we have an error of some sort because we're getting zeros and zeros. So let's see here. Let's back up. Where is the mistake? Simblee. Aha, okay. So here's the thing. Like I was just saying, your device has to connect to the Simblee for it to know what its height and width are. So I'm over here on the phone, and I'm just going to make that connection. I'm opening the Simblee app and connecting to it, and there you go. Now we get 320 and 568. That's a great little happenstance. Now I will disconnect, and we'll see if it retains it. It looks like it is, because I have disconnected from the Simblee. I'll even close the app here, and it's retaining those values. So we would expect that to happen, I suppose, until a new device connects to it. So what does that do for us? Well, aside from us now being able to better hard code locations on our user interface, you know, we could always just, now we know we've got 320 units in X and 568 units in Y, and we can do all the math and, you know, maybe get out some graph paper and figure everything out. But an easier, again, way to do this would be to create some variables to store these values. So we'll do int wide, and int high. And then we will say, well, I want my text to be put at maybe the screen width, which we've assigned to wide, divided by 2, to put it almost in the center. But then we will subtract another 40, and that'll slide it over to the left a little bit. And then we could go here, and we want to say I want it to be in the middle. And actually, for height, that's very close to the middle. And now let's upload that and see how it looks. So it turns out it doesn't look very good. I didn't even throw the clip in there of the text not showing up on screen because we established the Simblee for mobile screen width and screen height before my phone was connected to it. So it's a variable that got assigned and was never updated once those variables had any meaning. So we'll put that down here in the UI, and hopefully that'll work. If not, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how I did this before. So let's see how this works. Okay, so this time it worked. Let's open it up, take a look. Alright, there we go. So now we're hello world text, and now the point that the origin of the text is the top left here. Just like the phone's origin is 0, 0 up here, the text origin is at the top left of that H. So it is starting in the X direction, the width divided by 2, which would be right in the middle, and then we subtracted another 40 pixels or so, 40 units over. And then for the height, we just did height divided by 2. So we've got the top of the screen, bottom of the screen is height, divide by 2, puts us right there for the text to start at. So cool, now we've seen how we can use the variables of screen width and screen height to help us more accurately position text across devices. And we will now move on to the Z order of objects in our user interface. So let's take a look at Z order. Z order is just the order in which the elements in your user interface are drawn and how they get placed on top of each other. So even though we've got a two-dimensional screen, we can cover up objects with other objects if we draw them after the previous object. So to demonstrate this, what we're going to do is we don't need to, well, yeah, we'll leave text in there. But we're going to introduce a new element, a rectangle. So that's Simblee for mobile, draw rect. And then it has 5 arguments that are all required. And that is the origin, the XY origin, of course, and then the width, and then the height, and then the color of the rectangle. So what we'll do is we'll draw our first rectangle starting at 100, 100, and it'll be 100 wide and 200 tall, and it'll be blue. Okay, let's copy that, and then we'll do we'll do 2 more rectangles, and the second one will be green, third one will be red, and then we'll change up some of the starting points for this. We'll leave their width and height the same, but we'll just change their origins. We'll do 125, and then we'll do 150 here, 150 here. Okay, so when the user interface gets called, when we connect to the Simblee, the very first thing that's going to be drawn is the text "Hello World," and that's going to be in the exact same location as we just saw. We didn't change anything there. But then we're going to draw a rectangle, a blue one, and then we're going to draw a green rectangle, and then we're going to draw a red rectangle. And you might be able to see from the height and width of these rectangles and their origin points that there's going to be overlapping between them, and probably some overlapping on the text as well. So let's see how this looks when we get it uploaded here. Alright, let's connect up here. And there we go. So the first thing we drew was text, and that was a green text. And then we drew the blue rectangle, and then the green rectangle, and then the red rectangle. And each item covered up any items that were drawn previously. So that's the concept of Z-order. It's just the order in which items are drawn and how they will cover up any item drawn before them. So the last concept in the user interface layout that I want to address is the screen orientation. Now, just like there are default arguments in the begin screen function that allow it to be white. You know, if we don't pass in any color, the screen's just white. It'd be the same as doing this. Spelling it right though. Be the same as passing in white. But we modified that and threw it in black. Well, one of the default arguments in here is portrait. And what that means is that by default, if you don't tell it otherwise, your screen is going to start in portrait mode. And the width is going to be the narrow part of the screen, and the height is going to be the long part of the screen. But we can pass in a constant here, a landscape, and that simply is just going to flip it. So, you know, the long edge of your phone is now going to be considered the wide part, and the short edge of your phone is going to be the high part. But what doesn't change in this is screen width and screen height. These functions are still tied to the portrait values. So what this means is that if I decide I want the screen to be in landscape mode, these values for X and Y that we had assigned using screen width and screen height are going to be, well, they're not going to be accurate. Your text is not going to be in the middle of the screen. And to prove that to you, we can go ahead and comment those out, comment out the rectangles, and let's upload this to the phone. Okay, so here we are at the phone, and as soon as I connect, you need to watch closely here. I hit that. Did you see that? The text was in the middle, and then it turned into landscape mode here. But the text's values are still set as though it were in portrait mode. That's why it's down here in this part of the screen instead of up here in the middle of the screen or up here in the middle of the screen. So it's something you have to keep in mind, but this does give you a cool functionality with landscape mode. If you plan on it, you know, you can create your interfaces as such. And landscape mode is not going to turn back to portrait mode. I'm going to try and do this under the camera. If I try and, you know, set my phone up for it to detect it, it's still here in landscape mode. So that's the last part of the user interface layout that we want to address. Landscape mode and portrait mode can be set for all of the screens or any of the screens in your application. So far we've only done single screen applications, but it's good to know about, and we'll definitely use it in the future. In the next video, we're going to start in on various elements, UI features. The rectangle and text you've seen so far, and we're going to talk a little bit more about both of them, not too much more, but a little bit more. And look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.